Imagine living in a place where the air itself can kill you, where stepping outside for just a few minutes can freeze your skin, where food doesn't just run out, it disappears. Now imagine surviving there, because what you're about to see are not normal foods. They are decisions. They are risks. They are the line between life and death. And here's the crazy part. Some of these foods were never meant to be eaten. Some could actually poison you if done wrong. And one of them, people still argue about to this day. Stay with me, because number 11 and number 3 might completely change how you see survival. Let's begin. Number 15, frozen fish, eaten like ice cream. In the deadly cold of Siberia, cooking wasn't always an option. Fire takes time, energy, fuel, and sometimes you don't have any of that. So people adapted. They would catch fresh fish, and instead of cooking it, they would let it freeze solid in the open air, then slice it into thin strips and eat it raw. This wasn't a luxury, this was survival. The freezing temperatures actually helped preserve the fish, killed some bacteria, made it last longer, and when you're starving, you don't wait for a stove. This was not food, this was speed. Number 14, tree bark bread. When there's no flour, you make your own. People would strip bark from trees, usually pine or birch, dry it, grind it, and turn it into a rough kind of flour. Then mix it with whatever little grain they had, and bake it into bread. It tasted bitter, hard, almost inedible, but it filled the stomach. And sometimes, that's all that matters. This was not cooking, this was desperation. Number 13, reindeer blood soup. In the far north, nothing goes to waste. When a reindeer was hunted, every part mattered. The blood was collected, cooked into soups or stews. Why? Because it's rich in iron, full of nutrients, and in extreme cold, your body burns energy faster than you think. This wasn't just food, it was fuel. Warm, thick, life-saving. And in a frozen land, warmth itself becomes a resource. Number 12, frozen berries, stored under snow. You might think winter kills everything, but under the snow, nature hides its secrets. People would store berries in the ground, letting the snow act like a natural freezer. Months later, they'd dig them up, still edible, still full of vitamins, especially vitamin C, which prevents diseases like scurvy. In a place with almost no fresh food, this was gold, tiny, but powerful. This was not dessert, this was medicine. Number 11, seal fat chunks. This is where things start to get extreme. Seal fat are lots cut into chunks, sometimes eaten raw, high in calories, extremely dense energy. In freezing temperatures, your body needs fat more than anything. It keeps you warm from the inside, but the taste, the texture, not something most people could handle. Still, when survival is the goal, comfort doesn't matter, only calories do. Number 10, frozen dumplings. Stored outdoors, cooking once, eating for weeks. Families would prepare dumplings, filled with meat or whatever was available, and then leave them outside. Not in a freezer, just outside. Because the environment itself was colder than any fridge. These dumplings would freeze solid and stay preserved for long periods. Whenever needed, they'd boil a few. Quick, efficient, reliable. This was not convenience, this was planning. This is where things start to change, because up until now, these foods still sound somewhat manageable. But what comes next pushes survival into a completely different level. Trust me, you are not ready for number 7. Number 9, leather boil soup. Yes, actual leather. When famine hit certain parts of Russia, especially during war and brutal winters, people searched their homes for anything remotely usable. Old belts, boot pieces, harness scraps. They would boil the leather for hours, sometimes all day. The goal wasn't flavor, it was to soften it enough to release whatever fats, oils, and nutrients remained trapped inside. The result? A dark, bitter liquid, almost impossible to enjoy. But when your stomach has been empty for days, taste becomes meaningless. This was fermentation transformed it. The smell? Unbearable, sharp, sour, powerful enough to clear a room. But the process made it last, and in regions where food sources vanished for long stretches of winter, preservation was everything. One wrong move, though, and it could become deadly. This was not cooking, this was calculated risk. Number 7, animal bone marrow extraction. Here's what no one tells you about survival. The real nutrition often hides where most people never think to look. Bone.
After meat was gone, families cracked open large animal bones. Inside was marrow, soft, rich, fat-heavy, a concentrated source of calories. Children were often given first access because they needed strength to survive brutal cold. Every spoonful mattered. Every drop counted. Nothing wasted. This was not leftovers. This was strategy. Number 6, pine needle tea. Sometimes survival isn't about filling the stomach. Sometimes it's about preventing slow death. In long winters, fresh vegetables disappeared. That created a terrifying problem. Vitamin deficiency, especially scurvy. The solution? Pine needles. People boiled them into tea. The taste was sharp, resin-like, strange, but it contained vitamin C, enough to keep people alive. Imagine drinking tree-flavored water, knowing it might be the only thing standing between you and collapse. This was not tea. This was defense. Number 5, stale black bread soaked in water. Simple, brutal, effective. Black rye bread was a staple in Russia. Dense, heavy, built to last. When it became too hard to chew, sometimes rock solid, it wasn't thrown away. It was soaked in hot water, softened, turned into a rough mash. Not pleasant, not exciting, but filling. And in hard times, fullness itself becomes a victory. This was not breakfast. That was enough. Number 4, rendered bear fat. Now this was power. Bear fat was rendered slowly over fire until it became liquid, then stored. A single spoonful delivered intense calories. In extreme cold, this was priceless. Hunters often carried it because it provided instant energy. Some mixed it into other foods. Others swallowed it directly. The taste was heavy, wild, oily, but it worked. And when your body is burning through energy just to stay alive, you stop caring what works. This was not food. This was fire for the body. The real reason these foods existed wasn't tradition. It wasn't culture. It was adaptation. Every single one of these foods tells the same story. Humans will survive, no matter what. But now, we reach the top 3, and these are on another level. Number 3 especially, might be the most shocking survival food Russia ever created. Number 3, rotten frozen meat. Eaten on purpose. This sounds wrong, because it is. But in the deep Arctic regions of Russia, people discovered something strange. Meat that had been left to freeze, thaw, and freeze again, sometimes partially decomposed, was still eaten. Not because it tasted good, but because it was there. In some cases, the outer layer would rot slightly, while the inside remained frozen. They would cut away the worst parts and eat what was left. The smell, strong, unforgiving. The risk, very real. But starvation is worse. This was not a meal. This was a gamble. And sometimes, it paid off. Number 2, fish skin and scales stew. When everything is gone, you look again. Fish had already been eaten. But even then, nothing was wasted. Skins, scales, heads, all thrown into boiling water, cooked down into a thin, oily broth. Barely any meat, barely any flavor, but just enough nutrients to keep someone going one more day, one more hour. That's how survival works. It's not about thriving, it's about lasting. This was not food. This was time. Number 1. Moss and lichen survival mix. This might be the most extreme of all. When absolutely nothing else remained, people turned to the ground itself. Moss, lichen, scraped from rocks and trees. But here's the catch. Many of these are toxic if eaten raw, so they had to be soaked, boiled, sometimes multiple times, just to make them safe. Even then, they offered almost no calories, no real taste, no satisfaction. So why eat them? Because they were something, and when you're facing death, something is everything. This was not food. This was the last option. And that's the truth most people never hear. Survival is not heroic. It's not clean. It's not inspiring in the way movies show it. It's cold. It's uncomfortable. And sometimes, it's terrifying. These foods weren't created by chefs. They were created by necessity, by fear, by hunger, by the simple need to see another sunrise. So next time you complain about your meal, remember this. Somewhere in history, someone survived on bark, on bones, on things you wouldn't even touch. And that was enough. Now I want to hear from you. Which one shocked you the most? And be honest, could you survive eating any of these? Comment below. And if you made it this far, you already understand something most people don't. Food is not always about taste. Sometimes it's about survival.